If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that time is the most valuable thing we have, and if that's the case, we should treat the keeper of time with a little respect. With that being said, I have a friend who has more money than class, and he keeps his watch on a shelf with his hair pills. So we're going to take some scrap wood from previous projects, and I'm going to make him a watch case, because I'm a good friend. As always, as it goes on this channel, I had no drawings for this. I just had a very simple shape in mind, and the only measurement I had was my friend's wrist, obviously. I also knew that I wanted to do a tambour door on this one. I wanted to do a special type of door, not just a regular, cabinet door or whatever. I wanted this to open up and be a presentation because that is the whole point. It's to elevate the piece as opposed to let it sit on the shelf. So, the orange wood you see here is called Paduke. It is a hardwood. It's considered luxurious, even though I don't like how orange it is. The purple wood you see is Purple Heart. I mean, if you've watched other videos here, you've seen a lot of that. And then this here's Walnut. This was an old coat rack that I reused for this. Smaller projects like this, I like to use the table saw for miters. It's a lot more accurate in my opinion, and more satisfying just to watch that blade follow the top edge of the piece of wood there that you know is square. The end result, it ends up being perfect miters every time if you take your time to make sure that blade's at a perfect 45. I've had many a disgruntled viewer in the comment section talking about these gloves and how it is irresponsible for me to wear them, and I'm gonna get hurt one day. I'm gonna get pulled into a machine. I don't know if they know anything about latex, but this stuff is super weak, and I mean, a strong breeze could rip a hole in these, so I'm not too worried about it. I think they're just projecting anyway, because broken latex is how they were conceived. Anyways, moving on to assembly. Here I'm using a 23 gauge pin nailer to tack the box together while the glue dries, and I like using this pin nailer because it's very discreet. The hole it leaves behind is so small it should be on little St. James. If you've never used a pin nailer before, you should get one. They're very handy for stuff like this, tacking things in place while they dry. When it comes to these multicolored strips here, I was trying to get outside my comfort zone and do something a little different, and I didn't end up liking it, so you'll see how I resolve that later in the video. For now, we're moving on to the mahogany portion, which is the inner case. This fits inside of that walnut box you saw me make moments ago. This is going to house all the components and the tambour door itself. Here you see me using a method where you run 2 kerfs on the table saw, and then you finish the rest out with your bandsaw. I didn't have a resaw to, make the whole cut on the bandsaw, so that's an easy way of doing that. And I decided to add a curve to this section of the box because I like my wood like I like my women, with some curves, which still sounds suspect somehow. Anyways, as you can see there, I missed the cut. I pushed record when it was recording. You know the deal. You didn't miss much, though. You see me here making the tambour track template. I'm using 3/4 inch MDF with a laminate on top because it's what I had lying around. Whenever you're doing a tambour track template, you can use whatever you have. Just make sure the thickness goes hand in hand with the length of the router bit that you're using. Because I've used some shorter router bits and they didn't surpass the bottom of the template before, and I had to remake the template, which is annoying. So just keep that in mind whenever you're doing a tambour slot. It seems like I've been subconsciously inspired by Russian nesting dolls with this build, but it's just how this worked out. I like making things in separate pieces, perfecting those pieces, or getting close to perfection at least, and then putting them together. It's like a puzzle. All of these things are puzzles. Now, I do understand that it's ironic to say perfection when you can see that slot there that I'd routed and how the bit went off track a little bit. And that's because I taped that pattern to this piece before I routed it, and realistically you should clamp it. It's just with something this small, it's hard to get a clamp in edgewise without getting in the way of the router. So that's why I use double-sided tape. Now, if this was a project that somebody was paying me for, and this wasn't just a fun little scrap project, I would be tediously working out all the details and making it as close to perfect as I could. This thing has flaws, it has characteristics, and it's for a friend. It's individual, it's unique, and that's what I strive for, even in my personal life. To be individual, to be original, without being annoying about it, by the way. I'm not doing it for the attention, I'm doing it to contribute, maybe inspire some people, bring something fresh to the table. Okay, now that I'm done waxing philosophical about my craft, it's time to move on. I'm doing the tambour slats here. This is called zebra wood. It is one of my favorite types of wood, and it is worth every penny in my opinion. When you put the finish on at the end, it's always worth it. Regardless of the finish I've used, it looks great. This is a oil-based polyurethane, and I'm spraying the tambour slats prior to anything else in this project, because these have to be finished before you actually put the tambour door together. If I were to spray it after, the leather or the canvas or whatever it is that you put on the back of the tambour door would get covered in the finish as well. So that's why I finished them before. I decided to add some pieces of Paduke into the corners where the miters are. It's not really a spline. I don't know what you'd call this. This is like a vertical spline. It doesn't do anything structurally for the piece. It just adds some flair. Now I'm about 17 years deep into this woodworking career, you could call it at this point, I guess, and I'm still learning things every day. And on this project, I learned that I really despise Paduke. I'm not a fan of any type of wood that when sanded can be mistaken for hot Cheeto dust. I mean, it just looks tacky. Here I am mixing some of that Cheeto dust with some glue to fill some cracks. It just doesn't look great in my opinion. Now I did prepare a statement describing my distaste for Paduke. It's just in the stack of papers here. Give me a moment, let me shuffle through. Nope, those are the 9/11 files. Crime statistic. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Dear Paduke, while your grain is formidable, your hues are domineering and mostly disagreeable. No wonder your parents got divorced. Oh, and here underneath I wrote in brackets, if that's too highbrow, say Paduke, more like papoop. So, I'll leave it to you to absorb whichever one of those applies to your sensibilities more. Moral of the story, unless Chester Cheeto wants to collab, this is the last time you're going to see Paduke on this channel. I'm sure he's on the Epstein files, so this is probably the last time you're going to see it, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you can't tell, I'm killing time here. This is not a very complex build. It's just a bunch of small pieces put together. It's essentially a puzzle. I'm making puzzles for myself because I'm bored with life. But what you just saw me do is put in a spline. That little piece that's on the edge, that is to strengthen that miter. This sinfully orange piece of wood you see me putting in here is just one of the components on the inside for the case, the Tambour case itself. It holds the two sides together at an equal distance apart. That's the only way Tambour works, if the top and bottom plate or the two side plates are parallel to one another. That's the only way that works, so put a lot of focus on that if you're doing Tambour. You can see I freehanded a line on there, and I didn't cut up to it, and I'm not sanding up to it. That is just a reference point to look at and to know how far to sand and where to not go beyond. And as you can tell here, it worked out pretty well. It transitions into that orange piece very smoothly. And I'm going to add a miter to the orange here so that it kind of just slopes from the mahogany into the Paduke. I'm a big fan of flowy transitions or reveals. If you're going to butt two things up against one another, there has to be a transition of some sort. So why not make it a smooth one? Here I stole the play out of the Larry Hahn guidebook, and it is trace things in place. Why use measurements and angles if you have the two pieces in the real world? Just trace it, and look how well that works out here. Nice. Now here's where those colorful strips I was talking about near the beginning of the video, this is where they come into play. This is what I wanted to be underneath the watch block. I didn't want it to just be the bottom of that walnut case showing. That's kind of boring. So this is what I came up with. And as I said, I don't enjoy it. It looks like those long, crispy wafer cookies that are delicious and also disgusting for some reason. The vanilla and strawberry chocolate ones, or like Fruity Pebbles. So far in this video, all my comparisons are of food, but I can't help it that here in America, all the poison we get is beautiful. It's beautiful colors. So while the descriptions are fat, they're accurate. And I think that's more important, is that they're accurate. I'm a truth seeker, I've said this before, to my own detriment. Anyways, we are putting miters now on the bottom edges, so it goes in the box pretty smooth, doesn't hit or hang up on anything, and I can angle it any way I'd like. Here I'm just chewing away some material so that the inside can have a rounded profile and match the bottom of the watch block. And that is just so it looks good, honestly, it serves no other purpose. Removing waste like this always reminds me of those chiropractic videos you see online, where someone's getting the people's elbow on a massage table while somebody off camera is just crinkling an empty plastic water bottle. Now, I specifically did this chisel part for the aesthetic and for the satisfaction because it is rather pointless, because in the next shot, I pull the angle grinder out. And on the angle grinder, I have a wood disc. And that just hogs material out, and it lets me shape this thing the way that I want to. If you're wondering why I'm doing this part, there's no specific reason, besides the fact that I wanted it to be unique and just add some more details, just round over the inside. No, I didn't intentionally make this look like a half pipe, it's just how it worked out. And I wanted it to match the round edges of the backside of the watch block. And there you go, half pipe, lovely. Here we have some purple heart I glued back to back. These are just scrap pieces I had sitting around. I mitered the edges so I had less material to grind off. I don't think I did it on the backside, which I should have, because I also have to round over the bottom there. And as you can see there, I did set up a dust hood of sorts with a dust collector attached to it, because these fine particles are very dangerous. And I don't know if you knew this, but if you don't have a dust collector, you do have a dust collector technically, and it's called your lungs. They're going to do the job if you don't do it, so set something up and save yourself so you can vape for another 20 years. Here I'm just choosing the placement for the pins. I did brass rods in the sides here, and this is how I wanted it to sit in the case. I'm a big advocate for mixing mediums. Specifically on this channel, I use wood, fabric, metal, try to mix things up. If you're wondering why the watch block is so wide when a watch is, relatively thin on the wrist, it is so that I could cut the ends off after I drill these holes, and these little pieces that come off will go on the interior of the box. I take these over to the bandsaw and I cut little passageways, and this is where the brass rods that are sticking out at the sides of the watch block are going to drop into. The reason I did this is so the slots and the holes line up perfectly with the block itself, and it actually seats pretty well. Here I have one of these zebrawood slats from the Tambour door, and this is the piece that's closest to you. It's the first piece in the run, and I'm notching out so that I can put a handle on this thing. I didn't want to use metal or something prefabbed, I just wanted to make it out of the material that the box was made out of. This, besides the brass, is completely wood and it's all scrap that I've had, and I believe the brass was left over from something. I decided to use a piece of the papoop for the handle. I used brass screws in this thing just to keep it all tied together and cohesive. And the handle went on without a hitch. It fit pretty well, and I was happy with it. I always do a dry fit whenever I'm doing a tambour or anything like that. A previous project recently, I didn't do one. It worked perfectly. I mean, I've done too much of it at this point, I think is what that says. But always do a dry fit. Make sure the slot is parallel on the sides there, or if you're doing it vertically, the top and the bottom, make sure your plates that the tambour slats are between are parallel to one another. Here I've got some brass rod and I'm cutting it down on the bandsaw. This is 1/4 inch round. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it many places. And this here's just a little trick on how to polish or sand or just get an even sheen on brass, especially if you're not going to put some sort of sealer on it. This is a great way to go. I wrote a joke saying, "This is me when you subscribe to this channel." And that's inappropriate, so we're not going to pretend I didn't say it. I would never say something like that, that's inappropriate. But, subscribe please. I took the block over to the sander right before putting it into the case, just making sure it fits. It was too wide, I imagine, and look at that. Like a gosh darn glove. And now we are on to the final pieces of this puzzle. These are the feet that I'm making here, and I wanted them to have an interesting shape to them and also hug the corners of the box. I essentially just took some square stock and I've made some corner molding, basically, just L-shaped. And I cut smaller segments off of it and I just freehand rounded it in on this belt sander here from Harbor Freight. I love just shaping things by hand. It adds flavor you're not going to get by using machine and just mass producing parts. That's that personality we were talking about before. If you're not going to have much of it yourself, the things you make can have it. And I think that kind of evens things out. At least it does in my eyes. I'm using an oil-based polyurethane here. I've used this a lot. Nothing quite compares to the buildup of an oil-based polyurethane in my eyes. Rubio's pretty nice. I've been using it on a lot of stuff. But there's something about that thick coating that you can tell it just looks sturdy. And now I can completely negate what I said earlier about this just being wood with the brass dowels. I forgot about the leather, I don't know how, but we're leaving it in because we're being honest on this channel. And this is my solution. I didn't like those colors, the rainbow color there. No offense to the gays, just not my thing. Didn't look great on this, so I actually took a page out of their book and I just covered it with leather. I think it looks pretty nice. Watch block got some leather as well. Back of the tambour door gets some leather. I used a water-based cement here, a water-based contact cement, and I regret it because it seeped through the slats and I had to clean it off and it took a long time. So if you're ever gluing anything up like the back of a tambour door or just anything really where there's gaps and creases for something to seep through, like a water-based contact cement, just use a spray-on contact cement. I have one linked in my description. If you click the link, it'll take you to my Amazon and everything I use on this channel is in there. So, it helps support the channel and I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. These little brass nails in the back are just a little touch I like to add to these things. Maybe in a past life I did a bunch of horseshoeing. Something primal in me enjoys putting these nails in. I don't know what it is. And that's the watch block done. Now we're moving on to the door. Just put the leather on, make sure you apply enough pressure once your contact cement is dry. And you have to make sure you do the worm with the door. There you go, 3 worms. I mean, that's just the industry standard. Here I'm putting a leather on the rainbow. Beautiful. Put chaps on the old gal. Beautiful. I put a little relief in the back of the door. This just gives us a little wiggle room in that slot so it can slide around a bit. You don't want it binding up. I put the door in through the bottom of the case, and normally I'd put strips to lock the door in place so it can't slide out the back. But this sits inside of that walnut case, so the bottom of the walnut case will prevent this door from falling out of the track. Now, if you've been confused what I meant this entire time about two separate boxes, here they are. Here's the bottom base, and here's the top box that fits in it. These little sketches are honestly my favorite part about filming any of these videos. I mean, I just enjoy making things. Like this here, for an example. Oh my gosh, there's gloves under the... That's so funny. Just really let the humor shine through. My friend Seth was out of town. He's who I made this for, and his Rolex was with him, so I couldn't use it in these final shots. So I put my Casio in there, which is just as good in my opinion. Price doesn't dictate value, is what poor people say. And I grew up in a trailer, so... If you're new to this channel, this is just an older video with voiceover added to it so you can understand some of the processes and maybe laugh. Maybe not. Probably not. I've done that with most of the backlog at this point, and I have a few more, and then after those few, it will be all new videos again. So, go through the backlog. I've got plenty of stuff to watch there, and if you don't enjoy this voiceover, there's plenty at the beginning of this channel that don't have any voiceover. So, I got drawings on the website. Those go with how-to videos on this channel. I mean, that's a great way to support the channel if you enjoyed. And just leave comments. Subscribe and leave comments. It's very helpful. And the podcast is coming soon, so strap in. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you dearly. And good night. Love you. Good night.